life. I love doing that with my tour. I love doing that. Even when I did this last arena tour, I bought a very expensive
I'm
lighting.
going to pause you right there. When you say arena tour, that's what you're doing now?
I'm doing arenas exclusively, yeah.
Oh, my God. Can we go to the third floor and I can jump out the window? That fucking arenas? Are you serious?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying you haven't earned it. You've put in the work and like you blew up huge, but I've never done an arena.
So Bert Kreischer is one of the most financially successful comedians that's on tour right now. And because of that, it shows a very interesting time in stand-up comedy, which has been heavily influenced by podcasting. So today, we'll be taking a look at Bert's most recent comedy special on Netflix and give it a rating from 1 to 10. So let's get started.
Who the is this guy? He's a comedian! He's a comedian! Oh, that's me! Bert Kreischer, yes, that's my name. I'm so sorry. Sucker mother. Leanne's a redneck. She's like, someone got their or whatever.
So Razzle Dazzle is Bert's 5th comedy special, I believe, and 3rd consecutive on Netflix. And there is a clear night and day difference from his first comedy special on Showtime back in 2009 to his now Netflix comedy specials. Although his personality and delivery are still pretty much the same, his act and jokes have definitely changed to fit a more broad or commercial audience. That's because usually when comedians start doing world tours, they have to tailor their act towards more relatable things that people around the world can understand. In this case, Bert chose family. In a way, Bert Kreischer is like the Dom Toretto of the stand-up world because his entire act is about his family. Now, the beginning of the special was pretty cool and unique. Bert essentially rips his shirt open, followed by Michael Bay style of special effects showing the buttons flying all over the place. He then starts going into the first 30 minutes of the special, which was clearly his best material that he decided to put at the beginning. Right away, within the first 10 minutes, he name drops Tom Segura and then does it again, I think, at the 40-minute mark, which is pretty interesting because, like I said, the first 30 minutes were pretty solid for what it is. But the last 30 minutes, the last half of the special was pretty rough to watch because the last 30 minutes did feel like random jokes and just filler material. And it was, in my opinion, a clear attempt to just satisfy his audience, the podcast audience that was there. And hey, props to him for actually understanding his audience and catering to them, giving them what they want.
I like owning the house. I want to own the property.
So you own this house?
Yeah, I own this house. And then,
Jesus Christ.
And then,
from podcasting,
and
also by the stand-up. But
stand-up
do you feel the podcasting and the stand-up went hand in hand? For example,
and for us, podcasting was for me and Joe and Tom. It was an extension of social media to get people to shows.
Yes,
and I think people specifically come out. I know for a fact because of this show right here.
Yes,
and Bertcast. That is why they come to my shows.
If you watch his first comedy special back in 2009 or clips of it, you will see a huge difference from his style of comedy back then to now, because back then he was actually trying to make funny observations and try out jokes, edgy jokes, whatever. They were not the best. They were jokes like, hey, did you know that Japanese and Chinese people don't understand each other? And hey, did you ever notice that Dora the Explorer is a little bit racist? You get the point. However, there was a very clear life-changing moment in Bert Kreischer's life and stand-up career after he told the machine story on the Joe Rogan Experience. And I'm guessing that's when he realized that he had just found a new formula for doing bits on stage, which was essentially just telling funny stories. And he is good at telling stories, so it worked out well for him.
So the machine story has 51 million views. That's what blew Birdie up. But then also...
It's got 88 on all platforms.
Yeah, 88 million views.
My God.
And that was Rogan and Bert told you that story, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I told that to Rogan on his podcast.
Now Rogan's beak.
By the way, I gotta tell you. Well, hold on. I gotta say this, and
it's wet Rogan's beak. Now he's the one that came up with this plan. Right? He needs the money.
He changed my life because I told that story on his podcast. He then said, you need to tell that on stage. And I was not telling it on stage. And he was like, you need to tell it on stage. And he said, I was doing Columbus, Ohio the next weekend, Columbus Funny Bone. And he goes, guys, when you go to a show, from this point forward, he's only going to be known as The Machine. And you are to have him tell that story every time he goes on stage. You shout The Machine. And I was like, Joe. And he's like, shout The Machine until he tells it.
Once again, after watching the entire special, it was very clear that he purposely put his best material at the beginning of the special, the first 30 minutes, which is something that a lot of the comedy goats do to challenge themselves where they essentially burn their best material in the first 30 minutes to push themselves to perform better or perform the best they can during the last half of the comedy special. But when it comes to Bert's comedy special, it didn't feel like that. It felt more like a lazy attempt at hitting that 1 hour mark, satisfying the Netflix algorithm and his podcast audience, which is fair, but it's just a different style of comedy. For example, if you enjoy Bert on podcasts, then you'll likely enjoy his comedy special because it's essentially a mix of stand-up comedy and a solo live podcast on stage, if that makes sense. And you can tell this is true by how many people cheer and scream whenever Bert name drops Tom Segura or makes a reference about something that only podcast fans would know and understand. There is also a clear difference both in reach and engagement whenever he uploads those clips, those comedy clips, straight to his YouTube channel, with clips sitting at around 60 to 90,000 views, which is really good, but not relative to the size of his channel, of his YouTube channel. Like I said, the last 30 minutes were not the best, and the closing bit, the last bit, was very disappointing. It was essentially yet another story that included his wife, his mom and dad, and his daughters. And no lie, I'm not making this up, the last bit ends with a fart joke. You can actually see that clip on his YouTube channel. I think it's called The Escape Room, I believe. Now, one of the main reasons why his style of comedy now is not for me is that literally his entire act is about his family and himself. It gets to a point that it's a little bit difficult to watch and follow along because he has some very funny premises that are funny jokes, but he still feels a need to make up a story around it that involves his wife, his kids, and how they are like the funniest family out there. And some people might argue that when somebody gets that famous and that rich, their family is the only thing that they can talk about, which I have to disagree, because when it comes to Bert, he still has a crazy lifestyle, whether it is on the road or meeting up with famous people, and he is close friends with Tom Segura and Joe Rogan, so he definitely has a lot of stuff that he could talk about, but he decides to just make his entire act about his family. So it's clearly a business decision. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's working for him. It's just not for me. So because of all that, and keeping in mind that they did have a pretty much flawless production and marketing strategy, and the overall reception was pretty good, I'm going to give it a 5.5, because at the end of the day, it is a product that was made for a certain demographic, and it was done well, in my opinion. Performance, he has it down. Jokes, 50-50, and overall, I think it's a comedy special that a lot of people that relate to him will enjoy. However, if you're looking for new and thought-provoking premises that will make you crack up, this is not it. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe to support the channel. Let me know if you like these type of videos where I review recent comedy specials, maybe not so recent, but yeah, let me know. Dislike if you didn't like the video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.